Good afternoon and welcome to a special edition of Full Out Chats. I'm your host, Steve Solberg, and for the first time ever, we are going to do a two-part interview with Tate Chalk, founder of Nfinity Brands. Very excited to hear his story. He's got a very interesting background, a very interesting story. His cheerleading background, his Hollywood background, and that's what we're going to go after today. We're going to talk about how did he get to where he is today before Nfinity. And that'll be the first part of this series. And then our second part will be how did it come about to create a cheerleading shoe? Little bit of background about that, how it came about and became what it is today, which is really the brand synonymous with cheerleading shoes, especially in the all-star world. So we cannot wait to talk to Tate and hear about his background and his story. But as they say, let's do this one more time and let's go full out.
Full Out Chats. Do you know what time it is?
F-U-L-L-O-U-T. We got control, we got the right, we got the vision, you lose the sight. We will never stop. What? We got the drop, yeah.
What time is it? Full Out. We're live in 5, 6, 7, 8.
And with the music, we are full out, and let's bring in Tate Chalk.
Hey, Steve.
How are you? I'm great, man. Thank you so much again. I know you're a busy guy. We've been working on this for weeks to finally find a time to bring you in and talk about you.
Well, it has been busy, and thanks for taking the time. Man, that was quite an intro. That was full on. Had me 5, 6, 7, 8 over here behind the desk. Great job. Great job.
I appreciate it. And a special shout out to cheeranddancemusic.com for making that. They do good work over there at cheeranddancemusic.com with our intro music. So I was super excited that I was able to get a hold of you, Tate. I talked to Chris White a few weeks ago, and after Chris's interview, he was like, you got to talk to Tate Chalk. I mean, he's got an awesome story. You got to talk to Tate Chalk. And then a couple weeks ago, I also had Bill Boggs on, who I know is a good friend of yours.
Oh, wow. Yeah, great guy.
And Bill was like, whenever you talk to Tate, none of his stories, don't listen to those stories. So, Bill Boggs was such a fun interview. That was a great one. And it was just amazing, the connections. This is what I've learned through this whole process is just the connections, like I interviewed Pat Wedge, who was at South Carolina, and Leroy McCullough at South Carolina, who they introduced me to Bill Boggs. And then you were at South Carolina for a bit. We'll talk about that here in a second. So, man, this is just awesome. I can't wait to hear your story.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm honored that you'd have me. Of course, it's my story, so I don't know how interesting it is, but it's my life. And it's been a wild, wild ride to get me here. So I'm looking forward to talking about it. I'm looking forward to exploring it and, the trip down amnesia lane, as it were.
Well, as I ask everybody, let's just start from the beginning. Where did you grow up? What part of the country did you grow up? And kind of your background. What are any other sports you maybe played before you got into the crazy world we call cheerleading?
Well, I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina. I went to Irmo High School, played football. Before that, this is even more bizarre. Before that, in middle school, I tried my hand at musical theater.
Oh wow! Okay.
I know you're gonna show some embarrassing toddler pictures of me, but
we'll bring that up here in a minute. Absolutely.
I mean the picture of me playing one of Fagan's gang, Workhouse gang, is truly tragic. I think it was a little 12-year-old pudgy Tate with stage makeup on, and his little Workhouse gang is it's still in my office to remind me of how tragic life could have turned out. But did that, then decided that I wanted to go be a football player, and I spent a little time riding horses. My story is going to be all over the place. So I spent some time competitively riding horses, and then got into football, and then the horses decided they didn't want to carry my big hiney around anymore. So the horseback riding ended and football started, and I played ball all through high school, went to Furman University, played football. Interesting. Bill Boggs had coached at Furman University the year I went for my visit, and I had kind of met him through some other people, just sort of, hey, how are you doing? Good to see you. Never thinking that we would cross paths again. Yeah. And then I played football for a year at Furman. I was in the Army ROTC. I was all set to go to jump school first year, winter warfare school second year, Ranger school third year. And I had my life completely planned out, at 18, as everyone does, completely planned out. And I broke my shoulder, and there was no more jump school. But then, of course, I had to do something. So I was looking around, talking to some people, and I went back at home and went to work at Lifetime Fitness or one of those 1980s gyms. And a girl, Ann Watkins, we were working together. She's like, hey, I've got, I need to practice some stunts. I'm like, stunts? So I think we went in the aerobics room. This tells you how long ago it was, the aerobics room. And do a couple of stunts, and she's like, you've got to come try out. I was like, no, that's the cheerleading. That's not for me. She said, just come to one practice, just one. And this is back when universities didn't practice on campus because there was nowhere to practice. So drove cross town to a gymnastics facility. I walked in, and as most guys do, you walk in, you look around, you do the math, and you're like, okay, all right, I can get behind this. And threw a couple of stunts, and because it's always a sales pitch. Looking back on it and coaching in college and all that, when you get a guy 6 feet tall, 225 pounds, that was a long time ago, you're selling them from the minute they get in on why they need to come be a cheerleader. So I'm looking back on it, I was completely being sold, but we're in there and we're throwing stunts. And I think my first stunt was, like a toss to hands extension or, something. And I was just like, okay, all right. So you want me to put my hand on this girl's waist, throw her up, catch her feet, and then press her over my head. Okay, I can do that. Mm-hmm. So we did that for like an hour, and then they're like, well, why don't you try a flip? I was like, I don't know. And then, they had these two other big guys. They're like, oh, we won't drop you. So I did a back handspring, like my first. So I did a toss hands extension and a back handspring on my first practice. Mm-hmm. And I went home and told my folks that I was transferred to South Carolina and I was going to be a cheerleader. That's how that went down. And Bill was there. And at the time, we went through this period in the 80s and early 90s. It was kind of a transition period in cheerleading, and big guys were getting in cheerleading, and they didn't have a uniform to fit me in South Carolina. Mm-hmm. We even tried cutting out the sleeves and like piecing it together, and it looked horrible. I mean, it was just horrible. So they decided to order me a uniform from Mary Newby, John Newby's wife.
John Newby's wife. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, was our rep. She's one of the coolest, greatest ladies in cheerleading. And as uniforms take, we ordered it and whatever. And by the time I got it, it was basketball season. So all through football season, I'm cheering in a zip up warm up thing, and somewhere out there is me cheering in this is the 90s, right? So my flat top, looking shaved head, horrible look for me. Time and just cheering in warm-ups, and went to nationals my first year in San Diego 1,000 years ago, and that was 1988, 87. Okay. Mm-hmm. So for you ones playing at home, long time before your parents met, right? So,
my parents met. They were married in 82. I was born in 83, so it's fine. Yep.
Okay, right.
Now, I mean, growing up,
So Steve's playing with Matchbox cards, right? And
so I mean, but growing up in South Carolina, were you a South Carolina fan? I mean, did you grow up going to South Carolina games or anything?
no, not really. I grew up hunting and fishing.
Okay.
So, you Saturdays in the fall is dove hunts. So you didn't really, you may listen to a game. Certainly wasn't a Clemson fan, all those crazy IPTAY people. So, my father went to South Carolina. Usually in the field, it was just because, as a young man, you start out, you're really the retriever, right? So there wasn't a whole lot of time to listen to football games when I was chasing the birds and Dad was killing them. And so I spent my time in my weekends growing up hunting and fishing.
So we are at South Carolina. You're like, hey, Mom and Dad, I'm transferring to South Carolina. I'm going to be a cheerleader. So what was their reaction to their son is going to become a cheerleader at an SEC school?
Well, now keep in mind, I grew up in the South in the, the 80s. And
but South Carolina, though, is a powerhouse program already. I mean, we had just kind of at the time. I don't even think we were SEC. We were like independent because we had gone through some time in the ACC, and then there was all that Joe Morrison, Gamecock madness where we were under steroid investigations and all this other stuff, and we bounced around in the independent league and I don't even know the smaller leagues. But it was, huge school. Columbia is a college town, even though it was, the capital of South Carolina. Most people don't know that. So for your Trivial Pursuit, Columbia is the capital of South Carolina. And for you people in California, South Carolina is a state. I mean, it's not Southern Carolina. It's actually a state. So I remember coming home, and I told my mom, and my mom's just super supportive and always the same as a good mom is. She's like, "Oh, great. Probably not knowing what she was actually saying. Great too. She's like, "Oh, great." I could have just told her I ran through the garage with the car, but oh yeah, great, sure. And then I told Dad, and got a very different answer. He was in the bedroom, and I walked in. I was like, "Dad, hey, guess what? I'm going to be a cheerleader." And he stopped. He's like, "What?" I said, "I'm going to be a cheerleader." I mean, I know it doesn't sound, I went from playing football to cheerleading, and I mean, it's just, I said, but, because I really knew how to appeal to my dad. I said, but you get great seats. And he was like, "Oh, I do." I said, "Yeah, man, you'll be right at like 5th row, end zone, every game. You'll get to see any game you want, wherever you want." And, I still hold, he passed away 10 years ago, and I still, in his honor, hold his Garnet Club seats. And he's, 40-year, he's like, we're like 4th on the list for, all the season tickets and stuff. So really got behind it. Didn't start out all that well. Gotta say what? But it really got behind. And I mean, my parents were that cheer parent. My mom brought snacks to the team, and Dad's up there with the video, recorder. I think those things are still floating around here somewhere. But it was a great time at South Carolina. So I cheered at South Carolina for 3 years, and I had sent you a YouTube video of my time in '91. The hair is super special. You need to check it out. Unfortunately, it's so blurry that you can't really tell. Here's another fact, though. I am the very first national championship stunting spotter. Stunting spotter. I got it. Okay.
Daryl Landy won the very first National Partner Stunt Championship, and there I was. If you look, I am standing right to his left.
I had Mike Perry on about a month ago, and somebody told me that Mike was the very first. He's like, "Nope, I was the second." And he said that that South Carolina actually had won the very first ever Partner Stunt National Championship. I did not know that you were the spotter, so there we go.
That little known fact. I was the very first national championship spot.
You got to have a spot to make it legal. I mean, got to be a spot. So
Absolutely. And Daryl did a trick where he did a standing handspring tuck over Deborah's head. It was my idea, and of course, I had to be the very first one to step under the. She's like, I'm not doing that. So he had incredibly great tumbling. I mean, the guy was just a powerhouse. I was like, sure. I mean, what's the worst he can do? Land on me. First time hit it, stepped right under, boom. So it was a cool experience. Just one more check off. I cheered South Carolina for 3 years, and under Bill, loved it. Have the most respect in the world for Bill. I think Bill is an excellent coach. An amazing leader, charismatic, as I'm sure you saw on screen. I mean, the guy is just
that guy. When he told me he's never ever had to make a resume because he's always just gotten phone calls with job offers, I'm like, I believe it. And you meet him and you're like, of course, that guy just gets job offers for sure.
Bill Boggs is just I can't say enough good things about Bill. And so at the end of my third year at South Carolina, I, like everybody does after a few years, everybody on the team's like, oh, I'm quitting. I'm not doing this anymore. And I called everybody. on the team. Hey, did you mean it? Are you going to cheer next year? Oh, forget this. I'm not cheering. I can't handle this anymore. And this is nonsense. And this is too much work and too many appearances and all this stuff. And so I called everybody right down the line. Mm-hmm. I didn't tell them what I was going to do. I just asked them a question. Said, are you going to cheer? No, absolutely not. Called my partner. Are you going to cheer? No, absolutely not. Okay. So about that time, T. Lynn had called me at Kentucky and had Travella actually call me. And they said, hey, we're looking for another big guy if you'd like to come up to Kentucky. And I was like, ooh. Kentucky. I've never even been to Kentucky. She's like, well, come on up. So that was that weekend. So I'd already done a gut check with everybody. Everybody was not coming. I just jumped on an airplane. T-Lynn picked me up at the airport, and I got to Kentucky. Back then I was 21 years old and, bulletproof. And, we had work weekend, and then you have tryouts right at the end. And it's just crazy experience. Jim Lord was on my team, Jim.
Yep. I interviewed Jim about a month ago also. Yeah, he's one of my interviews.
Okay. So yeah, Jim Lord was on my team. We will get to Mike and all those guys later on. We created the Big Boy Tumbling Club, but it was a great experience. And Glenn Cook was on my team. Rich Turtelot was coaching back then for T-Land. Now this is back when we didn't have blue and white. It was just Wildcats and Lady Cats, and so when I came in, it was Wildcats or nothing. And so we tried out, and I remember very well sitting there as they're calling out names, and they're like, oh, in no particular order, somebody else. Somebody else, and I'm like, yeah, again, you're 21, right? I'm like, and then it was like, and Tate Chalk and Jim Lord, and I was like, all right, I guess I'm coming to Kentucky. So we're at the after party and the celebration, and I'm still meeting people. I'm like, you're gonna be my partner. What's your name? Okay, cool. And then I called my partner. I'm like, who's your favorite Kentucky cheerleader? What? I was like, who's your favorite Kentucky cheerleader? Quiet. I said, well, you told me you weren't cheering, and so I came up to Kentucky and tried out, and I made it, and I'm coming to Kentucky. I'm a Wildcat. Are you happy for me? It's like, I can't right now, and hung up the phone.
Oh, my goodness.
man, this is totally not fair.
Yeah.
So right down the line, everybody calls me and tells me what I betrayed the team and I left, and it was my team to lead, and I was next in line, for leadership. And
Were you going to be a senior that year at South Carolina?
I was.
Yeah.
And everybody, I was like, you guys told me you were leaving, so you can't blame me.
Mm-hmm.
They did.
Of course they did. Yeah.
And then a total jerk move. I wait till their first practice back at South Carolina, and I'll go walking into practice with my uniforms, slung over my shoulder. I look back, I was like, oh my God, I was such a jerk. Mm-hmm. And Bill's like, put that down and get out of my gym. And I was like, crazy time. So went to Kentucky, and man, let me tell you, I didn't know what I was. Sometimes, and through all this, my life has really bounced me around. First, people say, oh, you have these things that derail you. I kind of glossed over my shoulder injury, but I was headed into the Army. I was going to play football at Furman. I was headed in the Army. Now, keep in mind, this is Iraq 1, right? Mm-hmm. So I would have gone into Desert Storm. As a Ranger, definitely in harm's way. Knowing me, probably a lot of guys didn't make it, right? Mm-hmm. So I look back and think, wow, God really just said, this is not for you. I've got something completely different for you. And so I look back and say, people say, these bad things happen, but if you pay attention and you move through life, bad things can turn into amazing things. Mm-hmm. So here I am. I'm at Kentucky. I told my dad I was going to go to Kentucky. Mm-hmm. So, and he said, well, we're done paying for school. Hold on. It's like the 1st of August. Yeah. You're just done paying for school? Mm-hmm. He says, yeah, well, we paid for 4 years and we're done. I mean, if you want to live at home and go to Carolina, I guess, but since you're not, then you can have your car. So for the first time, now I'm not going to bore everybody with the many times I've done this, but for the first time in my life, I put everything I own in a white Glad trash bag, put it in my Fiero. Yes.
Oh, Fiero, nice.
Yes. Wedge of death. And pulled out of the drive. I remember this like it was yesterday. Again, I'm 21 years old, and to the world, you're bulletproof. But here I am. I'm going to Kentucky. I don't know how I'm going to pay for school. And my parents have said, you're on your own. 15 minutes before I'm leaving. So I'll be honest, tears are coming down my face. I'm not at the ugly cry yet, but I'm driving away. I'm looking in the rearview mirror. My puppy's, there, and the tears are starting to stream. And I'm thinking, what the hell did I just do?
Yep.
Well, I'm pulling out of the driveway now, so let's go. Mm-hmm. So I drove up to Kentucky. At the time, Glenn was very gracious and rented me a room because he was teaching for UCA, and I was living on a borrowed bed. Again, this won't be the first time I lived on a borrowed bed. I was living on a borrowed bed, and off, bartending and trying to make it. Mm-hmm. When I was at Kentucky, and I think if you saw one of the videos that we did earlier this year, you heard this part of the story, but it kind of breaks it down to this breaks me down to my determination. I got so broke at Kentucky that I had half a tank of gas, a Chevron coupon for $5 worth of gas, and one piece of bologna. Like, that's how broke I was. But I was like, at the time I was like, I'm just going to keep on one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other. Here we go. Train. Through camp, smoked everybody. We're at camp and it's just Kentucky of old. I mean, you walk in and it's literally like the Dallas Cowboys walking into play a Pop Warner team, right?
Because I was just about to say, I mean, this is 1990-91, but I mean, Kentucky is Kentucky by now. It's already Kentucky. I mean, it is the premier national champions. I mean, this is the program people dream about making already.
Correct. And so you go to camp with a certain expectation of perfection.
Yep. And
we go to camp and we smoke camp. I mean, just smoke it.
Is this at the old school East Tennessee?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Go over to Poor Richard's, have your, after workout beverages and sandwiches and pizza, and you just have a gathering, and it was a really cool time. And that royal blue shirt with a big white K on it. Again, it's early 90s, so don't judge, but white shorts. And it was just a club to be a member of. It was the club to be a member of. So train. Really, when I was there, it was, they had told me that it would take 2 years for me to go ahead and get out, but I thought, what's one more year? I was fortunate and blessed enough to get college paid for. My dad's sister was doing well enough to be able to write me a check to cover what Kentucky couldn't cover. So very blessed. One of the happiest days of my life was the day that I was able to give her that money back. It took a while, but I did finally give her the money back for school.
That's really cool.
But, yeah, I mean, it's hard. Sometimes people, if you're not emancipated, I couldn't even borrow. I couldn't get a grant, couldn't get a loan. My dad, was doing too well for me to even get any money to go to school. So I'm just like, I'm in this like lost crowd of my parents claim me on their taxes. But, but I couldn't have borrowed a stick of gum. Yeah. So we trained a lot, but I was really at school to cheer. I mean, it was just all cheer all the time. I mean,
let me ask you this. I mean, South Carolina, like I said, South Carolina's good program, very good program, had a great coach in Bill Boggs. Now, was Pat Wedge there yet or not?
So the post Kentucky era is when I found out that I couldn't continue, and this is we can cut back and talk about the great catastrophe of 91.
Okay.
The great Kentucky crash, the great catastrophe to call it. And then I called Bill, and being the guy Bill is, he took me back, and I helped him build the program, and I was head of recruiting, and so I recruited Pat Wedge, and I recruited Dan, and I recruited all of that, and so I was the guy right before that next phase. So all of the names, I mean, we were going to win, and I felt like what Kentucky had taught me was, even though we fell short, I think I learned from other people what it took to win, and what a program, not just a cheer team that did well, but what a program looked like. And so Bill, accepted me back. So in the meantime, before I went back to South Carolina to finish my degree, we were going through at Kentucky. And again, one of the things they teach, and I know Kentucky's gone through a tough time this season, and in my personal opinion, I mean, this is the day the music died. I mean, Kentucky cheerleading is the cleanest run, most, and you can read all of the defense of what people do, but I mean, they talk a lot about accountability and being accountability for oneself, and they treat people like grownups, and they talk a lot about you stand on the shoulders of greatness and people that came before you. So when you talk about being a wildcat, you never hear someone say, I was a wildcat, if you notice. No matter if you cheered in the 70s, 80s, 90s, you cheered last year, it's I am a wildcat. So when people call me, or this whole thing came up a couple of months ago, I'm a huge supporter of the Wildcat and Wildcat alumni.
I noticed that about the Kentucky program. It doesn't matter how long you cheer there. You can cheer there for 1 year or 4 years. I think a lot of, actually, I know for a fact, majority of the people have the exact same feelings that you do.
Well, you're either in the club or you're not in the club.
Mm-hmm.
And I was fortunate enough to be in the club. I'm very proud that I was in the club. I by no means was ever the most talented person that ever cheered there, but no one's going to work harder or no one was going to outwork me. No one was going to outspend the time on perfecting something. So, I am just so blessed that I got to go.
Mm-hmm.
One of the interesting stories from when I was in Kentucky, other than the fried bologna, the grilled bologna story,
Yeah.
because everyone was so smug, they were throwing their steaks and chicken on the grill. I just went and got my thick cut bologna and just plopped it on the grill. It's like, do you mind if can I have some of your beer? I mean, is that cool? Dale Baldwin, who was in charge of the Alumni Association.
Yep.
Well respected and super guy. He was paralyzed in a mini tramp accident in the 80s. And the reason we don't use mini tramps. Mm-hmm. And he was paralyzed, but has fought back, got just a beautiful life and just an awesome man. I went with Dale the very first van that he was going to drive. Mm-hmm. I went to pick the van up and have it delivered. I didn't really think this through. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I'm going to be driven around by a man who has been in a wheelchair for a few years now. Mm-hmm. And the only thing I had was really the emergency brake. I was like, okay, Dale, you got this, man. You got this. You got this. And like the true champion he is, I mean, first time he locks into that wheel, we may have had a hard time when that first left. I did reach over. I was like, come on, Dale, you got it, man. You got it. You got it. Keep turning. Cars are coming at us, man. Keep turning. But, I did get the chance to be with Dale on when he picked up his first van.
Very cool.
That was a very cool experience. And just the fact that Dale was one of those giants that I was standing on the shoulders of, because Dale was several years before me and such a legend in his own right, just as as a cheerleader. And then, after the accident, such just a leader in Kentucky alumni. And he continues to this day to be a leader of the thousands, several hundred of us that have been walking around, since the beginning of time. And it's just such a great experience. And like I said, it's a club that you're either in or you're not. And I'm very fortunate that I had a chance to be in that club. Found out that school is going to take longer than I had originally found out. So I called Bill Boggs and, I said, Bill, I was arrogant. I probably didn't do it the right way. With all that being said, I had to come try. Basically, will you take me back? Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that I didn't say it like that. I'm sure I said it some kind of dumb, but that's the basic premise of it. And Bill, being, the gracious, just wonderful guy that he is, took me back. And, I said, Bill, I want to help you. I want to take what I've learned at Kentucky, and I would like to help you build a program here at South Carolina. And he immediately put me in charge of recruiting, and I got busy finding big guys and little girls. And
so you are going to cheer one more year, though, right? You are cheering one more year.
I was, if I had to. Mm-hmm. I was trying to. I was like, I would like to just, stay coaching as an assistant and get my school paid for. But if I spent more time on the mic, honestly, than I did anything else. I mean, I was on the mic every game, and that's one of the things they really teach you at Kentucky is the mic man really controls the crowd, and you need somebody totally engaged. And we had gone through this period of in the late 80s that mic men were kind of hokey, and it was it wasn't really part of the cheer team. It was just sort of a school spirited thing. And, we felt like the whole thing between the band and the mic man and the sound and the team, everything should have, some continuity to it. So I spent most of the time on the mic with a splitting headache, but, we got through the year, and, I was on the floor one more time. And it was awesome. It was awesome. And
as you mentioned, I mean, you got guys like Pat Wedge, and for people that don't know, I interviewed Pat about a month ago. Legend. Some people consider him the GOAT. Some people still do today think he could be the GOAT. I mean, he made partner stunning what I feel it is today. Without guys like Pat Wedge, we're not doing the crazy stuff today.
Well, you could go back to, we're not. And I mean, we can talk about what the rules have done to the sport over the years. Mm-hmm. But, you go back to Stuntfest back in its heyday, and you've got Doug Stidham and Pat Wedge and Hernan, and you've got James Speed standing there with a creative mind who can say, okay, I want you to do this, and you're going to jump up and spin around 2 times and do the thing and back tuck, and then we're going to catch you. And, you get that kind of Cocker Spaniel look from the girl. And I mean, it was just so much talent that most of next year's routines and most of creativity was coming out of that Stuntfest.
Oh yeah.
It's changed a lot. Cheerleading has changed. We're in our 5th iteration of cheerleading, right now. But, during that time, it was, the middle 90s and the early 2000s. It was, there was just a lot of creative stuff going on.
Yes.
And a lot of just innovation that I wish we still saw today. Mm-hmm. And, some of the things we still do here in Nfinity. I mean, I've built a brand on innovation. I want to make sure that, that I out innovate myself. I don't want one of my competitors to come up with something bigger and better and faster and stronger and higher. So we're constantly trying to push that innovation. I think I got that from, kind of when I came up, that cheerleading was all about innovation. Mm-hmm. Not new ways to do it around a certain rule, but true innovation. Like, how are we going to get someone to do this many rotations and this many flips? And is she still going to be in the right position for me to grab her foot? And if she's not, then how can I get in that right position? Mm-hmm. So, a lot of through the legs and around and upside down and around and flipping it. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
So you got back in the Fiero, right? Head back to South Carolina, did it. Real quick, for people that do not know what a Fiero is, let's pull this up real quick. I was able to find one. This is a Fiero right there.
There she is right there.
And I found this on a website, no joke, worst sports cars ever made. And they have the Fiero. And that is, so whenever Tate talks about getting in his Fiero, this is what you have to envision, this car right here.
Man, the wedge of death. It had the engine in the back, and it had way too much power and no front end weight and plexiglass, and it was pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
That is a beautiful car. Oh my goodness. My first car was a 1992 Chevy Cavalier. So I did not get to rock the Fiero, but I had the Chevy Cavalier. But so you go back to South Carolina, Bill Box takes you back, you recruit, you get some really good talent, you compete one more time at South Carolina, and then you graduate. Is that correct?
I did. They kicked me out with a degree.
Okay.
I was like, can I change my degree one more time? Like, you already got a degree. Time for you to leave.
So besides cheerleading, what were you studying at South Carolina?
Criminal justice.
Okay.
I wanted to go work for the federal law enforcement, and I set for the marshal's exam, and I did really well on that, and I was all set to go work.
Oh, so you're thinking this is happening. This is what you want to do.
Yeah, and I learned that they only paid the guys like $20,000 or something to live in Chicago or Miami or New York. You had to pick like one of the big 5. And so I was like, I got to go live with 5 other agents, to pay my dues. I was like, there's just got to be a better way. Excuse me, got to be a better way.
Yeah.
To take what I've done. And so I long about that time, there were these new things starting out called all-star gyms. And I had gone and done some choreography down in South Florida. And if you're playing at home, this is like the 10th move
Yes.
with one bag of clothes.
And the Fiero.
The Fiero actually, thank God, blew up on me. I blew it in. I was like, this is good enough. So then I got the old Mazda, not even RX-7, like MX-3 or just
tiny
regular
car.
old, just daddy sedan, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was bad. I think I paid like $700 for it. So moved to South Florida. I was working with an all-star gym down in South Florida and did that for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in Fort Myers. I love it down there, but fair enough. It's a reason they say newlyweds and nearly deads, right? I mean, it's not any place for a 23-year-old trying to work in a gym because the rest of the day you're like, there's nothing going on.
Mm-hmm.
But very lucky to do that. And about that time, I got a call from Eddie Zagara. So Eddie Z, legend in cheerleading, it's if you knew anything about camps, he was from App State, coached at Georgia. Big Peruvian, 6'4" Peruvian guy. So Eddie called me and said, "Hey, I'm coming back to work at this gym in Atlanta called American Cheerleading.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you come to Atlanta?" I don't know. Sounds good to me.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you, everybody down here in South Florida. It's been fun. And I'm picking up and moving to Atlanta.
So real quick, even without even knowing it, cheerleading has sucked you in without even knowing it, really, without even planning it. I mean, it's just how making a living doing cheerleading.
Well, so I wanted to talk about that. Sometimes a lot of times people come and say, how'd you get to where you are?
Mm-hmm.
And the broken road, the if you ever saw Price is Right or the new game The Wall, the pinko, the ball that bounces around from there's when you start out, there's absolutely nowhere to know where it ends up.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back on my life, hindsight, it is just such a road. And I tell people all the time, I think you have to have the courage to listen and be ready to move when the opportunity strikes. Because I think the world is kind of full of, the expression is cold and timid souls, that know neither victory nor defeat. I think it's how the quote goes. But I think most people are just scared if there's an opportunity. Hey, I've got an opportunity. There's this opportunity to have a podcast. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know anything about podcasting. Well, you go and you figure out how to do podcasting, and now you've got a super successful podcast. I mean, I think people just don't take opportunity and don't listen, or take a negative. Something happens, or you hurt yourself, or it doesn't quite go, or I didn't get into nursing school, or I couldn't be, I couldn't go into the Army, and take that as, well, what's next? Where's another road? And if there's not a road, how do we cut a road to get there? So sometimes I think sometimes you find your career. Sometimes it works for people. I think people, they are born going to be a doctor, and in their 5 they're going to be a doctor, and at 12 they're going to be a doctor, and 18, and next thing you know, they're a super successful doctor. And there are people like me who I think one way, and maybe God's got another plan for my life, and just decided that I'm so hard-headed, it's best to let me know the plan as it unfolds rather than the entire plan at one time. So I think that either sometimes you find your career, or sometimes your career finds you. And that's what I love about what we do. And that's what I love about life, is how exciting it is, that what tomorrow might hold, and what can you do with it? And that's really the interesting thing. I mean, we're going to get to infinity and what I've been fortunate enough to accomplish here. And some days I still pinch myself and think, am I really like running this company? Is this like something that, and it's just one foot in front of the other, man. It's, and having the courage to do something no one else did. So yeah, I as you can see, like my life kind of bounced me around. I was on like I said, this is now my 11th move.
Yeah.
With one bag of clothes. For a while there, I had I had a saying that if you can't get out of town in 30 minutes or less, you have too many routes.
Much stuff. Yeah.
So, I moved to Atlanta, moved in with Eddie on a borrowed couch for the third time. When I was living in Fort Myers, I was living on a pull-out couch. So that bar right across the back, for a while there, I think I had a permanent just bend in my back. But moved in with Eddie and started working for American Cheerleading. Did that for a couple of years. The opportunity came to buy in and actually buy the rest of it. So we had 4 gyms around Atlanta. We had 3 more locations outside. One was in Columbia. Randy Dickey was running that location. Casey Jones was working with me. It's just a really cool experience when all of that Atlanta crew has been together so long. Chris was even working for us in the summers, in summer camp. So we had a couple of thousand kids a week coming through. Now this is at the time American and United had the only 2 mega gym, kind of groups.
I was like, this is a pre what is today, like mega gyms are everywhere, names are everywhere.
Right. And, we had the big debate. Do you run them as separate locations? Do they just have a gym? Is this American Columbus or is this, American Cheerleading? And so we built a brand that way. And Eddie had decided to move on and I was, there, and I had a great support staff. And even to this day, like Casey Jones and Randy, he would, they would sell summer camps in their off time. And we had a war room and, they're in there just dialing for dollars. And then we'd have another 100 staffers to come in and do summer camps. And we did that for a couple of years and really enjoyed it. And finally, I decided that I had just had enough of the gym business and sold off the locations to the different gym managers. And some of them, the gyms now, Stingrays, ACX, some have molted into different, they're on their 5th iteration now up in, northern Atlanta, down in Columbus, Georgia. So it's just cool to look back and see, how we had built that gym business. Mm-hmm. But the gym business, even now people come, have you thought about getting back in the gym business? Have you thought about Nfinity having a gym? I'm like, no. Absolutely not. I know what it is. I know what it's like. I fully understand what it is, and I don't want any part of it. I love that these guys love it, and they're passionate about it, and they're great customers. I just don't want to run one. I don't want to own one. If I ever got back into coaching, I tell people this all the time. If I could coach a team of orphans, I would coach it in a heartbeat. Absolutely. If I could afford to support them wholly and, and I don't want them living with me. That's too much work. But if they just showed up, did a great job, and there were nothing else to deal with, I would absolutely do it again because I do love coaching. It's really part of what I really, really love coaching. I love the creativity. I love the surprise that you get when you coach. Sometimes, and I try to bring that here to Nfinity because one of the things, if you've ever coached at all, that, you come into a routine with an idea or you go into, with a practice with an idea, and then another idea can come out of just completely somewhere else. Some, 14-year-old, first year on the team, never done anything, you're trying to work on a transition, and you're like, oh, hey, Tate, have you thought about, you're a genius, child. You are a genius. It turns out to be the best idea there is. So that's one of the things we do here at Nfinity is we really try to give everybody, no matter what side you work on, sales, marketing, customer service, warehouse, that we always present the big ideas and let people work out the implementation, because they may be bringing something to the table that we haven't thought about. Sometimes we've done it before. Sometimes it's failed because you can be too early with an idea. Just as well as you can be too late. So sometimes it's like, hey, you know what? We tried that a few years ago, didn't work, but it's been a few years and technology's caught up. So let's try that again. So it's I try to bring that piece of the coaching over to what we did at Nfinity, but that's really what what drew me to coaching and what I loved about American. Now, when I sold the gyms, I went to work. I was working for another shoe company. Power. They were, we had made them big for just a little while, and I had done that for a couple of years and realized that I loved it. And at the time, I was so grateful that this is when the national championships were exploding. This is when they went from 2 to like 100 national championships. So athletic championships and American championships and spirit sports and All-Star Challenge, and all these things were happening at the same time. And fortunately, I was friends with all these guys, so I was like, "Hey guys, can I set up a booth?" And they're like, "Sure." So we built the brand, and I did that for a little bit, and realized that I at the time I just had a parting of the ways with the owner. He had a very old company, and just didn't want to change, and that was okay. And I started thinking, what do I want to do? And at the time, I was 31, and I hadn't, keep in mind, and I haven't put all my clothes in one bag and moved in a while. So, high time, right? So I thought, what do I want to do? And I happened on being an extra at a set. Because remember, I'd done my music theater back when I was,
12. Cool. I mean, you have some experience here.
Yeah. I mean, I had a resume. And so I thought, I thought about it, and I went and I did some extra work, and I met this guy. And, there's people, again, just are put in your lives, right? And I met this guy who was turned out to be just a tremendous buddy. And one of my other employees, Rusty Joyner, who had gone on to be, he was like the Abercrombie model in the 90s. And, so he was out in Hollywood, and I thought, do I want to act? I guess I like being in front of the camera. And I thought, okay, well, I'm 31. I'm not getting any younger. I'm not getting any more single. I'm not getting any better looking. If I'm going to go, it's time to go. So I bought a one-way ticket to Hollywood, and because I had read this great book by David Mamet called Truth and Lies. I'll have to look that up for you because it's a bit a million years ago. And he talks about don't have a plan B. Because if you have a plan B, which is why, Cortez burned the ships, right? If there's a plan B, you always go back to it. And so I didn't have a plan B. I bought a one-way ticket. And, if you've got time for a story, and, this is going to get, for some people, this is going to get a little bit religious, but I want you just to kind of see, where I was in my life. So I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And along about this time, there was this book called Prayer of Jabez that came out. And, it was all about, you pray this one prayer and God will answer it and he'll bless your life. And, you'll get you some clarity and, just kind of a meditation sort of thing. And if you do it for 30 days that, God will answer your prayers. And I had this great mentor at the time and named Ken Kington. And again, I wish I'd kept a better list, because there's always like one person through my life who's always given me a leg up or a bed to sleep on, or, some help when I needed it. There's always been those just little angels all along the way. And I can remember their faces clear as day. And I wish, and sometime one time I reached out to one of those and they were like, who are you? I was like, well, for what it's worth, you made a world difference in my life.
Yeah.
So I was at a time in my life, and I was like, okay, let's figure out what's next. So I thought, okay, well, I was raised very, conservative Southern Baptist, but I was like, don't test God. But I was like, God, I know sometimes you give a maybe or a no, but I need a yes, because I'm about to move to Hollywood. I don't know if you hear me, God, but I'm about to move to Hollywood. So I prayed, and I was like, okay, every day I prayed. And I finally talked to my friend, who was just a tremendous mentor. And he said, you know what? Sometimes it's okay to test God. If you're just honest with yourself and you listen and you do. I said, God, okay, here's the deal. I'm going to Hollywood on June 15th. I need a yes or a no. I'm good with either one, but I need a yes or a no. For this one, I can't get a maybe, because we're going hard, or we're not going. And I'm cool with not going. And so this is 60 days out.
Yeah.
I'm praying, 30 days out. Time to buy the ticket. I'm like, God, tomorrow I'm buying my ticket. Give me a hard, because again, keep in mind, I've bounced around my whole life. I've been, I'm in and out of my Fiero. I'm in and out of my, $700 car. I'm not afraid to get skinny. Well, these days, could be. I'm not afraid to make it happen. I said, okay, June 15th. Tomorrow I'm buying my ticket. So I need you to break my car down or some way, because back then, you had to go buy your ticket. I need something to happen. Nope. Tickets bought. I was like, okay, God, I got my ticket. I'm going. And talked to my buddy Ken. I said, I'm going. He said, hey, I'll pray for you too, and we'll see where this leads. The day's coming, and I'm moving to Hollywood.
Yeah.
I've now, keep in mind, I've done a little bit of middle school stage theater, right? I took one acting class at the Alliance Theater here in Atlanta, and I'm like, I'm going to Hollywood. If these guys can make it, I can make it. Mm-hmm. So I loaded the plane, and I remember thinking again, what the hell am I doing?
Yep.
And I sat in an exit row. And I remember because some guy was flying next to me who was going to pick his brother up out of federal prison to drive him back. I was like, okay, all right. That's not really an answer, but good story. So he kept me occupied the entire time. And I'm thinking, good thing I'm not in federal prison. All right, there's that. And then I got to Hollywood. And when I landed, this is back when the Motorola flip phone, so, yep. And my mentor, Ken, at the time, I guess had a bad signal, because he said, I got a hot, one of those broken messages. And he said, what I heard him say was, in my devotion this morning, break, 1 Samuel, break. Everything's going to be okay. And, I'm like, all right, I am going to have to find a Bible. Mm-hmm. And so I look it up, and 1 Samuel says, because at the time the Israelites were leaving and they're going to the promised land. That's just to set the stage. But Moses can't go, and Samuel's going to take them. All right. So this is God to Samuel. I am with you and I'm paraphrasing, I'm with you everywhere you go. I'm with you over the great river, over the desert, to the great sea in the west. I am flying from Atlanta, over the Mississippi River, over the Arizona desert, and landing literally at the Pacific Ocean. I'm still, 30 years later, like, okay, well, God's never audibly spoken to me, but if he wasn't saying everything's going to be all right, then I don't know what was. Now, it took a little while for it to get all right, though. I mean, I show up there, and I don't know if you've ever had to borrow a couch before, but here's a little tidbit. You may want to ask the girlfriend of the friend if it's okay if you borrow the couch. Because I not only had one, but I had a backup, because you know me, I've got a backup plan. So I had a friend who's like, man, no problem. You can sleep on my couch. No problem. We're set. I show up. And he's like, hey, man, I need to talk to you.
Oh, man.
Oh. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, she's not okay with you staying here. I mean, she's okay with you staying here this weekend, but I'm like, I'm in Hollywood. I'm from Columbia, South Carolina. How many people do you think I know? Like, I've got one bag of clothes. I've got $1,500. I'm on my 12th city. I mean, like, and my $1,200, I'd already, spent because I bought a Mazda, MX-6 that had been repoed. So the driver's door lock was glued shut, and you couldn't open it up from the driver's side. So I had to climb in through the passenger side. All right. So for $900 that needed a new alternator. So I'm down to like $50.
Yeah.
Again, much skinnier times. So but again, I said, you know what though? God said, don't worry, everything's gonna be cool. And for whatever reason, I was cool. I was like, great, I'll just call my other friend. I call my other friend, and he's like, yeah, she's not going to let you stay on our couch. But I am going out of town for the weekend if you want to stay for the weekend. I was like, oh, okay, all right. So my sort of forever plan now was basically a 10-day plan.
Yeah.
And I stayed in their house for the weekend. And at that time, I met a dude who cheered at Mississippi State, was bartending and waiting tables at the Saddle Ranch on Sunset Boulevard, if you've ever been to Sunset Boulevard, named Mac Jackson. And Mac, if you just happen to see this, you're the greatest man on the planet. Because Mac didn't know me from Adam. And I'm at the Saddle Ranch, and I'm talking about cheering at Kentucky, and I'm talking about cheering in South Carolina. And he's like, hey, man, no problem. I just got a brand new girlfriend. I stay with her. You can stay at my place. You're kidding me.
Wow.
Like, no, man. He's like, nah. And I was like, but I don't really have any money. He goes, just listen, when you start making money, but hey, there's only one thing. I live at the bottom of Runyon Canyon. I don't know if you know anything about Hollywood, but Runyon Canyon is like the place of all places. So I moved to town thinking I'm going to stay on one friend's couch in the valley. Doesn't happen. Think I'm going to stay on another friend's couch over in Brentwood. Doesn't happen. I now have my own room at the bottom of Runyon Canyon. I was like, man, dude, you got me. This is going to be perfect. And so I started what people do. But the difference is, when you go out there, usually it's just, a young person, you don't really know a whole lot about Hollywood, and you sort of fall for the nonsense, and, you get involved in the Hollywood life. I'm a little too old for that. I'm not ancient yet, but I'd already owned a business. So, I was told by another friend I met like the first day there, he said, remember one thing, they call this show business. They don't call this show acting. So keep your business mind about you and work on the business side. And man, I got my headshots done. I got my, I was working on independent films. I did like 23 independent films. I was just hustling. And do not go to IMDb and look at my independent films, because there's.
I thought you were saying don't show the picture, but I gotta show the picture, Tate. So I mean. No.
Oh,
there it is, man. That is a shot. That's what I'm talking about, baby.
My wife hates that shot. Oh my God.
That was money well spent for that shot, Tate. That's all I'm gonna say, man. Well spent.
I couldn't be more embarrassed. I'm speeding up. Okay, kids at home, that is not a good representation, but yes, you have to have a headshot, and that's one of my headshots. Fun one year, my wife took all my headshots and made them into a calendar and handed them out to all the staff.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was crazy. So at this point, this is a really weird time in America. This is about this time is August 2001. Something happened, and I was actually Matt came back, and I was actually at a pay by the week motel, one of those motels that that they have the phone outside. You know, the ones that you have carpet and I don't know, you probably have never stayed in one. There used to be one in Daytona called the Holiday Sands. You literally was AstroTurf, and you had to go outside to use the payphone. Anyway, so I was staying at this pay by the week motel when the towers fell. Mm-hmm. And, my TV behind the cage, which you would expect, I had woken up early to, the towers falling, and it, really to this day, rocked my world. And, it really made me thankful for, friends and family. But the one thing you wanted to be, if you remember that time, is you wanted to be near somebody, right? You wanted to be near your family. You wanted to hold your family. I couldn't get home. I couldn't do anything.
Yep.
So I wrote it out by myself. Got back in Mac's place, thankfully. Ran Runyon Canyon a lot. Mm-hmm. But it was a really, difficult time, from 2001, just kind of as that year, was finishing out. It was just a really tough time. But during this time, I had a chance to work on the business, and I got involved in some really good acting classes. And I was sitting out headshots. I had it down. I heard this rule, work on 3 things a day. Oh, we're going late. Sorry. I had this rule, that they said, work on 3 things a day towards your career. And that is usually 3 times more than someone else is doing. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I was doing every day. Is I was either working in an acting class or researching or trying to meet with casting directors or trying to find an agent or sending out headshots. I was working on my career all the time. And, that's one of the things I think that kind of set me apart, because I was a little more mature. As people would tell me in Hollywood, you're not that old, but, I was a little more mature. So I could really work on my career. And interestingly enough, I had worked on it and done a bunch of parts and gotten a pretty good resume. And then I got a phone call from Bill Boggs. Mm-hmm. Said, hey, we just got a phone call from a production studio that wanted to work on a movie, and I don't have anybody, and I thought about you. Maybe you can call the production studio and see what happened. And it ended up being, they wanted me to do the choreography for the cheerleaders, and of course, these movies have no budget for cheerleading choreography. And I said, listen, you can't afford my choreography fees, because at the time, choreography was my survival job. And, like all the choreographers today, if you don't kill it, you don't eat it. And every day is worth, so when you guys are, you're wondering why choreography is so expensive. They only have so many days to do choreography, and that day has to be worth, what it's worth. So I said, I don't have the time in my choreography schedule, but I tell you what, I'm trying to be an actor. I'm not asking you to give me a role. I'm asking you to give me an audition. And if you give me an audition, I will, I'll do this for, pennies on the dollar. Mm-hmm. And they brought me in. I auditioned for the ref. The producer wanted me for the main ref, but the director had worked with him on another project before. And so they're like, but we've got this other part. It's got a couple of lines, a couple scenes with Vince Vaughn. You'd be perfect for that. I was like, you know what? This is just more than I could hope for. Let's do it. And so I got a chance to be in the movie, had a speaking role. To this day, I get my whole, it's because of the quarantine, Dodgeball has been playing a lot, y'all. So watch it. I get my 63 cents every time it plays. So to this day, my wife and I laugh about it because to this day, I think I get about $60 a quarter. So I'm like, it's Outback time, about once a quarter. But it's just such an experience. I got a chance to do. If you remember, they had the donkey cheerleaders, and
I would say so. You did the cheerleading stuff for that, then also.
Yeah, right. And so Eddie Rios was on my team, and Bo Beal was on my team, and all these other younger guys in California were on my team, the Donkeys. And so I did the choreography for that. Very grateful at the time. Tammy Van Vliet was doing her competition, and she let us run this fake routine, with a new backdrop. The lead, Julie, she was so awesome. She did all her own stunts. She actually did a lib double, and just great. Justin was amazing to be around. The one that was kind of, Steve Tudyk was, if you know him from iRobot and from, the Pirate Steve, he was fantastic. Got a chance to work with just a lot of cool people that I would never had a chance to work with before. And that led to other jobs, other stunt coordinating jobs, other choreography jobs, other jobs that led, I got a chance to work on Coach Carter with Sam Jackson. Now, even though, it's one of those things when you're looking for a job, right? The answer is always yes. Like, hey, listen, we have this idea. We need 4 cheerleading routines, and then we need a stomp routine. I'm like, oh yeah, I got that. I'm on the phone with anybody. Like, do we know people who know stomp? I mean, I need a stomp routine. So we put together all the teams, and it was a great chance to work with some of those directors. But Hollywood was, it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And what I realized was, being a South Carolina boy and not a Southern California boy, it's just different. And so I remember telling a friend, I was like, I've been here for a little while. I'm really looking for a sweet girl. I'm really looking for, this. And I was like, so how's that going? I was like, well, dating in Southern California, well, that's for a whole other show. But dating in Southern California is not like dating in South Carolina, put it that way. So which is ironic because my wife is from Southern California. It's a crazy story. It's crazy. She was born. So I ended up leaving Brentwood. She was born in Santa Monica at the hospital, maybe 2 miles away from my house. Well, not when I was there, because she's young, but she's not that young. But it was what a crazy coincidence. But I was like, and at the time I was going to a church, a Presbyterian church, and I was like, okay, God, I'm done here in California. Now my friends at the time, keep in mind, my friends are like, you've got 4 credits, you've got all this career. In California terms, I'm on my way. It wasn't like I wasn't like going to be famous or walk down a red carpet, but it's chip, 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 chip until till it happens. And I was really kind of on my way, because there's people now you see on like leads on shows that I was doing little bit parts with and doing independent films with. And, I was like, but is it really, does it fit with my life? Is this what I want? And so I said, okay, God, I'm done here. If you're done with me here, because you promised me success. I've had success. I think where I kind of left it was 99.9% of people, 999% of the people that go to Hollywood end up going back to Pumpkin Holler or wherever they came from. And, but I don't know if they gave it their all, and they'll never know they gave it their all. What I decided, I don't think I won, and I don't think Hollywood won. We just call it a draw.
A draw. Most people don't leave Hollywood in a draw. They don't leave it that.
So I took it as a draw, and I said, okay, God, I'll take a draw. Hollywood, I'll take the draw. Sometimes you live to fight another day. And on that Sunday, I said, okay, God, I'm done. If you're done, on that Wednesday, and I kid you not, on that Wednesday, so Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I get a message from Mike Pear, or Mike Perry, depending on the year, the decade. I think it's just because Sherry didn't want to be Sherry Perry. I don't know. I love her. She's fantastic. But, just depending on the decade. I get a call from Mike that says something along the lines of, "Hey, Tate, it's Mike. I know we haven't talked for a long time," because remember, Mike and I had touched, we had kind of crossed paths at Kentucky. He was coming in as I was going out, and, we were friends. And he said, I've got an opportunity for you if you give me a call. Now, I don't know if you've ever had anyone try to sell you Amway, but it normally starts with, "I've got an opportunity for you. So give me a call." So I get this message and I'm like, this guy is going to try to sign me up with some Amway. And, I was like,
some pyramid scheme or something.
Yeah, some multi-level marketed Herbalife or some nonsense. I said, I can't. And I said, but it's been 20 years. I respect him. I'll call him back. And I called him back, and that was give or take October of 2003. It took me about a year to get out of Hollywood because I had some business that I had to finish Dodgeball. I had to finish Coach Carter. I had some other things. And at this point, Nfinity was just an idea. And that was the phone call that started it all.
Which is the perfect segue for our next part, which will be, so Tate Chalk's going to leave Hollywood and he's going to start up a shoe business. Why not?
Why not? Absolutely. I'm starting a shoe business. Never mind that these are multi-billion-dollar competitors. Never mind that we don't really have a plan. Never mind all of that stuff. We're going to start a shoe company. And here we go.
Before we end this one, I do want to pull up this picture. This is the classic shot of Dodgeball as the referee. A lot of people probably do not know that is Tate Chalk, co-founder of Nfinity. He is their first referee for the Average Joe's match to be able to qualify for the Dodgeball National Championships. You got to meet Vince Vaughn. You got to meet all these. You said these guys are just great, awesome to work with. When you think about just that experience of amongst Hollywood royalty, that's when Vince Vaughn was on fire. Everything.
Oh, yeah.
Those were my college years. Old school and Dodgeball. Just all those. He was on fire. He just couldn't miss.
Sure, Wedding Crashers, right?
Wedding Crashers, yes. Everything he touched was gold. Was it almost surreal? You're like you said, you're the South Carolina guy, just moved to Hollywood on a limb. Prayed to God that it would work out. And is that kind of the moment you're like, oh my gosh, it worked out?
I don't think I was self-aware enough to think that much. I think I was just gonna grind it out, and I was trying to be present. But yes, it was surreal, but it was also, and I guess that comes with years of cheerleading and years of grinding it out and years of making it. Literally doing the work. In some ways, I felt like I should be here. This is what I worked for. This is, while it was absolutely a blessing, and while there are millions of people who don't get that opportunity, I put the work in. So I think in some ways it was surreal, and in other ways, I should be here. Worst faux pas ever. We get back on the crew van, right, after a shoot to go to, it's actually lunch. We're headed to craft services. It's Vince and Steve and, all the guys. And I jump in the front seat. Yep. Little embarrassing after I realized when he got it, he goes, "Hey, pal, mind if I sit up there?" I was like, "Oh, sure, Vince. Come on up."
Absolutely, Mr. Vaughn. It's yours.
Whatever you want. Yeah. So I think
nice about it. So
what's that?
At least he was nice about it.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's just, goes to, again, it's surreal, but it's only kind of after the fact of all of the things and all of the places and all of the stuff that I look back on it. And I think that, I think for me, it's more like, how did I get through that rather than, or how did that happen rather than being so self-aware in the moment that, you know, I can't believe this is happening to me, because I'm every step of the way, I'm either letting myself get to the point of like rolling the dice to get to zero. So if you're doing the math at home, I've been broke broke as a joke 4 times, down to less than $50 in my bank account. I've lived out of a bag. I've not had a house. I've slept in my car. I've gone coast to coast. I pretty much went where any opportunity took me. So I think that just prepares you for the next thing, as much as, you know, wow, you know, and I think that's even where we are right now with all the success we've had. And I mean, we're the #1 brand in the world, thanks to everybody watching, and thanks to, you know, internationally, the strength of the brand, thanks to my staff, the great guy behind the camera right there who has got me, you know, looking good and not quite as old and fat as I probably do. But, you know, I've got a great staff and we've got a great brand, and, you know, people like you for taking the time to reach out. You know, it's the little things along the way that, you know, people believe in the same things that we believe in. And that's, you know, our core values and why Nfinity and what makes a difference, and, you know, how we try to always surprise and delight, and make people feel a part of the Nfinity Club. And so I think that's what sets us apart, and that's sort of, you know, what I hope that we can continue to do, and what I hope to go into, you know, next time with you. But thanks for having me. You know, thanks for all the people. I do want to take this time to thanks for all the people that put themselves in harm's way. All our essential workers and all the hospital workers and all the people who are bringing us food when we can't get out, and just, you know, people who are hurting right now. You know, there's just so much going on in the world that, you know, we need healing, and you know, it's just compounding, it seems, every day. But I have faith. I have faith in humanity. I have faith in cheerleading. I love this sport. And, you know, I think that what's next, I think we're on the cusp of something really great. And looking forward to talking about the Nfinity journey with you.
As we said, I mean, we're going to talk about those opportunities, which is on part 2 of our Tate Chalk interview. We're going to talk about what he's known for today, Nfinity, the Nfinity brand, how it started, how a prototype screw up it leads to what you see today, which is a funny story that I heard before from Mike, which I know Tate will tell again, because it's quite the story of how it started.
I do have that prototype. I do not have the god-awful a T-shirt from the box of T-shirts, because I did run around NCAA with this thing. You're definitely not going to believe the shoe that started all of this.
So next week we'll have part 2 of the Tate Chalk interview, where we will talk about the foundation and the creation and the growth of the Nfinity brands. Tate, thank you very much.
Steve, thank you for what you're doing for the industry.
You're welcome. See you guys next week.